What just erupted inside the Cleveland Browns locker room isn't your typical sideline spat. It's a full-blown turning point for the entire franchise. Because when Myles Garrett, the unquestioned leader of the defense, the face of the team, and one of the most respected voices in the NFL, steps into offensive drama, you know something massive just went down. And this time, it wasn't quiet, it wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't the kind of message Jeudy wanted to hear. Garrett didn't dance around the issue. He didn't try to soften the blow. He openly called out Jeudy for targeting Shedeur Sanders with dismissive, demeaning comments. And he made it crystal clear who the locker room stands behind. According to Garrett, if you don't have something productive to say to your teammates, you shouldn't be saying anything at all. That wasn't just a warning. That was a shot across the bow. A superstar telling a veteran. Receiver, that the excuses, the finger-pointing, and the attitude are done. And here's what makes this moment seismic. Garrett didn't just defend Shedeur. He went further. He expressed disappointment in Jeudy. He questioned Jeudy's effort, his attitude, and his commitment. That's not something a franchise leader says lightly. That's the kind of statement that echoes through a locker room and exposes the real divide forming inside the Browns. A team that's ready to ride with a young quarterback who's playing far beyond expectations, and a veteran receiver who seems determined to blame everyone but himself. By the time you finish hearing what led up to this moment, you'll understand exactly why Garrett's words may have just sealed Jeudy's fate in Cleveland, and why this incident marks the beginning of a new era inside the Browns organization. The moment Myles Garrett opened his mouth, everything inside the Browns facility shifted. This wasn't a casual comment or a veteran offering generic leadership advice. This was the face of the franchise stepping into a situation he rarely touches, and the weight behind his words sent shockwaves through the entire league. Garrett is known for dominating quarterbacks, not headlines. He doesn't insert himself into offensive issues, and he almost never calls out individual teammates publicly. That's why what he said about Jeudy landed with the force of a sledgehammer. Garrett didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't try to massage the message or hide the frustration simmering beneath the surface. Instead, he delivered one of the bluntest statements you'll ever hear from a team captain. If you have nothing good to say, don't say something to somebody. Then he confirmed what the cameras didn't catch. Jeudy hadn't just been chirping, he'd been openly disrespectful toward players who were out there fighting to keep the team afloat. Garrett called that behavior demeaning and disparaging, and hearing those words from a player of his stature paints a clear picture. Something inside the offense has crossed a line. But Garrett wasn't finished. He doubled down, saying the team is 100% behind Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback who's been battling through chaos every single week. Think about that for a second. Garrett didn't use the safe language most veterans lean on. He didn't say, "We support everyone," or "We'll get through it together." No, he singled out Shedeur, praised his effort, and made it obvious who the locker room believes in. The other message was just as loud. Garrett is disappointed in Jeudy. He believes Jeudy has more to give, more to contribute, and more responsibility to shoulder. And the fact that he isn't doing those things is unacceptable. When your most respected leader publicly questions your professionalism, that's not criticism. That's an indictment. In one statement, Garrett made two things unmistakably clear. Shedeur Sanders has earned the full respect of the locker room, and Jeudy's attitude is running out of road. And from this moment forward, Jeudy isn't just under pressure to perform, he's under pressure to prove he even belongs. Before Myles Garrett ever said a word, the film had already delivered its verdict. What pushed this situation from frustrating to explosive was the growing pattern of Jeudy's on-field mistakes. Mistakes that weren't just hurting the Browns' offense, but actively sabotaging Shedeur Sanders' development as a rookie quarterback. And the truth is, once you look at the sequence of failures, it becomes clear why the locker room finally snapped. It started immediately. On the very first offensive play of the game, Shedeur made the exact read you want from a young quarterback. He recognized the soft pocket in the defense, anticipated where the space would open, and delivered a perfectly timed throw into a window that only his receiver could attack. But instead of accelerating into that space, Jeudy slowed down, a route that should have been a routine completion, a momentum-setting play for a struggling offense, died on the turf because his receiver coasted through it like it was a walkthrough. That's not miscommunication. That's not chemistry. That's pure lack of effort. And this wasn't an isolated slip-up. Just 1 week earlier, Shedeur uncorked one of the best throws of his young career, a deep, on-the-move strike thrown with anticipation, accuracy, and touch. It hit Jeudy in stride, perfectly placed for what should have been a walk-in touchdown. Yet somehow, Jeudy managed to fumble it away. A throw most quarterbacks can't make, even with years of experience, became another empty stat because the receiver couldn't secure the ball. For a rookie quarterback, those plays matter. Those are the throws that build confidence, rhythm, and trust. When they turn into turnovers or incompletions through no fault of your own, it chips away at everything you're trying to build. Instead of momentum, you get frustration. Instead of trust, you get hesitation. And instead of support, Shedeur found himself taking the blame publicly while Jeudy shrugged off responsibility. That's why these failures became a breaking point. They weren't just individual mistakes, they were symptoms of a larger problem. A veteran receiver giving inconsistent effort, failing to execute basic fundamentals, and expecting his quarterback to clean up the mess. And as the pattern grew more obvious, so did the tension inside the Browns locker room. If there was one moment that truly exposed the divide between Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders, it wasn't the sideline argument. It wasn't even the first play slowdown. It was the deep ball, the one throw that should have changed the entire narrative of the Browns season. Instead, it became the play that made teammates, coaches, and even analysts question what Jeudy was actually bringing to the field. Late in the previous game, Shedeur rolled out to his right with pressure closing in from both edges. Most rookie quarterbacks panic there. Most tuck the ball, take the sack, or force something reckless. But Shedeur kept his eyes downfield, saw Jeudy streaking into open space, and released what can only be described as a perfect NFL throw, the kind of ball scouts salivate over. It had touch, timing, and anticipation. It hit Jeudy in stride, right where elite receivers make their money. And then, disaster. Instead of securing what should have been an effortless touchdown, Jeudy lost concentration for a split second and let the ball pop loose. A guaranteed 6 points turned into a turnover, and the entire offense deflated in real time. That was a tough catch. That wasn't a contested ball. That was a gift, and Jeudy dropped it. For Shedeur, the damage went far beyond the scoreboard. Rookie quarterbacks survive on trust. They need to know that when they take a risk or deliver a big-time throw, their receivers will finish the play. But how can you trust a receiver who fumbles away your best moments? How can you build rhythm when your deep threats become liabilities? Inside the locker room, players saw it too. They watched the film. They knew the throw was elite. They knew the mistake belonged to Jeudy. And they knew the sideline confrontation that followed wasn't about accountability. It was about deflection. Instead of owning the moment, Jeudy tried to shift the blame onto the one guy who had actually done his job. That deep ball didn't just ruin a scoring opportunity. It revealed the growing fracture between effort and ego, between a rookie quarterback fighting for every inch and a veteran receiver refusing to take responsibility. And once that divide became visible, it was only a matter of time before someone, especially a leader like Myles Garrett, stepped in to address it. If the dropped deep ball exposed the cracks, The sideline confrontation shattered whatever trust remained. Cameras caught Jeudy marching straight toward Shedeur Sanders with the kind of body language that tells you everything before a single word is spoken. Arms flaring, voice raised, frustration radiating off him like heat. It wasn't a private conversation. It wasn't a calm correction between teammates. It was a public explosion from a veteran who'd spent the entire game making the very mistakes he was now blaming on someone else. Shedeur didn't rise to it. He didn't match Jeudy's tone, didn't snap back, didn't even flinch. He stood there quietly, absorbing every bit of the anger thrown his way without giving on an inch. And that calmness, that unshakable composure, only made Jeudy look worse. Instead of rattling the rookie, Jeudy ended up exposing his own lack of accountability in front of the entire team. Players noticed, coaches noticed, and most importantly, Myles Garrett noticed. Veterans in the NFL understand the difference between constructive tension and destructive drama. This was not teammates holding each other accountable. This was a receiver trying to save face but shifting blame, using the rookie quarterback as a shield to cover his own failures. You can get away with that on some teams, but not in a locker room run by leaders like Garrett. Multiple players reportedly walked away shaking their heads. Others couldn't believe Jeudy was confronting the one guy who had been keeping the offense afloat. And when Garrett eventually addressed the situation publicly, it became clear that this was the moment he decided enough was enough. A defensive captain stepping into offensive issues is rare. Doing it publicly is even rarer. But watching Jeudy berate Shedeur after repeatedly quitting on routes and fumbling opportunities crossed a line he couldn't ignore. The sideline blow-up didn't just make Jeudy look unprofessional, it revealed exactly why the locker room quickly aligned behind Shedeur. One man was melting down, pointing fingers and losing composure. The other was steady, poised and focused, even as the offense crumbled around him. In that moment, everyone in the building saw who the true leader was. And ironically, Jeudy's outburst did more to strengthen Shedeur's standing than any touchdown pass ever could. What happened after the game is what truly separated Shedeur Sanders from Jeudy. Not the throws, not the fumble, not even the sideline confrontation. It was the way each man chose to carry himself once the cameras turned on and the microphones came out. And this contrast is exactly why the locker room gravitated toward one and distanced itself from the other. In his post-game interview, Shedeur could have easily unleashed frustration. He could have pointed out the blown routes, the fumbles, the lack of help, and the disastrous execution around him. Nobody would have blamed him. The film already told the truth. But instead, he took the high road. He talked about chemistry. He talked about growing together. He talked about how building a functioning offense isn't a microwave thing. A simple, honest reminder that progress takes time, trust, and patience. He didn't blame a single teammate. That's rare for a rookie. That's rare for a veteran. That's leadership. And then there was Jeudy, whose behavior painted the opposite picture. Instead of acknowledging the plays he quit on, instead of accepting responsibility for the route he slowed down or the touchdown he dropped, he turned his frustration outward. He chose to confront Shedeur. He chose to deflect. He chose to point fingers at the one player who had done everything possible to keep the Browns' offense competitive. Inside a locker room, players see through excuses fast. They know who's grinding and who's coasting. They know who studies film, who fights through pressure, who owns their mistakes, and who looks for someone else to blame. And when they saw Shedeur publicly taking accountability while Jeudy dodged it, the decision on who to stand behind became effortless. Even more telling was the pressure Shedeur placed on himself. He talked about needing to rally the team better, needing to create confidence, needing to lead more effectively, even though none of the breakdowns were his fault. That humility hits different when it comes from a rookie thrown into chaos. Jeudy, meanwhile, offered no such accountability. This contrast didn't just reveal who each player is, it revealed who the Browns want to follow. And for the first time in a long time, Cleveland might finally have a young quarterback whose maturity outshines the veterans around him. As if Shedeur Sanders didn't already have enough working against him, the one factor that continues to drag this offense down isn't just inconsistent receivers, it's the coaching decisions coming from Kevin Stefanski. Week after week, instead of giving his rookie quarterback room to grow, Stefanski keeps boxing him into situations that would make even veteran QBs crumble. And the Browns are starting to feel the consequences of an offensive philosophy that seems more focused on limiting mistakes than unlocking potential. The most glaring example came in the red zone, a moment where momentum was building and Shedeur was finally finding rhythm. He had just navigated tight windows and broken pockets with total composure. He was reading the defense, moving the ball, doing exactly ... what you ask from a young quarterback under pressure. But just when the Browns needed to capitalize, Stefanski yanked the ball out of Shedeur's hands and handed it to Jerome Ford, despite Ford getting completely smothered by the 49ers all game long. Anyone watching could see it. San Francisco was overpowering the run game, blowing up blocking assignments before Ford even had a chance to breathe. Yet Stefanski doubled down on a play call that had already failed repeatedly. Predictably, it blew up again. Points slipped away, momentum disappeared, and the offense fell right back into the same pattern of stalled drives and wasted opportunities. It wasn't just a bad call. It was a message that the coaching staff still doesn't fully trust the quarterback, who's been carrying the offensive load. Then came Stefanski's post-game hesitation about Shedeur's future as the starter. Rather than offering firm support, he danced around simple questions, talking about looking at the film and wanting plays back. Only after being pressed did he finally say Shedeur would start the next game. But even that answer felt reluctant, more of a concession than a commitment. Contrast that with Myles Garrett's no-hesitation support, and the difference is glaring. The locker room believes in Shedeur. The coaches feel unsure, and that uncertainty is costing the Browns dearly. A young quarterback can fight through pressure, bad routes, and tough defenses, but fighting his own coaching staff's caution is a battle he shouldn't have to wage. Yet week after week, Stefanski keeps making it harder, not easier, for his most important player to succeed. By the time Myles Garrett addressed the media, the Browns' internal tension had already reached a breaking point. But it wasn't until Garrett spoke publicly that everyone realized just how serious the situation had become. Garrett isn't just another voice in the locker room. He is the heartbeat of the franchise, the standard setter, the player everyone else watches before deciding how to act. So when he chose to pick a side, it sent a message louder than anything coming from the coaching staff. Garrett didn't deliver a vague, diplomatic response. He didn't hide behind cliches about team unity or working through adversity. Instead, he drew a clear, unmistakable line. He condemned Jeudy's behavior as demeaning and disparaging. And then, just as importantly, he made it clear that the Browns stand behind Shedeur Sanders. Not the veteran receiver, not the player with the bigger contract, but the rookie who's been that his actions aren't just frustrating, they're unacceptable in a locker room that's trying to build something real. Several players reportedly echoed Garrett's tone behind the scenes. They're tired of watching Shedeur fight through broken protection, dropped passes, and questionable play calling, while Jeudy responds with excuses and finger-pointing. Garrett's comments simply said what everyone else was already thinking, but wasn't willing to voice publicly. Enough is enough. And what makes Garrett's stance even more powerful is its timing. The Browns are at a crossroads, teetering between another year of dysfunction and the possibility of rebuilding around a young quarterback who actually gives them hope. Garrett choosing Shedeur now signals to the front office that this isn't just about football. It's about culture, accountability, and future direction. On any team, there comes a moment where leadership must choose who represents the team. Standard. Garrett has made that choice. He's standing with the guy who shows up prepared, poised, and humble, and distancing himself from the player who keeps making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And once the franchise cornerstone plants his flag, trajectories shift. Jeudy's role becomes uncertain, Shedeur's status becomes elevated, and the Browns' locker room suddenly feels like it belongs to a different quarterback, one who didn't need to demand the respect because he earned it. Now that the dust has settled, the real question facing Cleveland isn't about Jerry Jeudy or even about Myles Garrett's explosive statement. The true issue is much bigger. Will the Browns finally support a franchise quarterback, or will they repeat the same cycle that's kept this team cursed for decades? Because everything we've seen, the dropped passes, the sideline blow-ups, the questionable coaching decisions, all points to one simple reality. Shedeur Sanders is doing everything within his power to elevate this team, but the organization hasn't come close to meeting him halfway. Shedeur is showing traits that franchises spend years searching for. He's poised under pressure. He's accurate when chaos collapses the pocket. He's accountable when others deflect blame. He's composed when teammates lose control. That's not normal for a rookie. That's not accidental. That's leadership. And it's exactly what Cleveland has lacked for years. Yet despite that, he's been surrounded by a system that limits his potential instead of unlocking it. Drop touchdowns, abandoned routes, and conservative, hesitant play calling have put him in situations designed to fail. And this is where Myles Garrett's comments become more than just a defense of his quarterback. They're a warning to the entire organization. Garrett is signaling that the locker room sees who the real leader is, and they expect the franchise to act accordingly. The message is simple. Stop enabling the veterans who bring excuses and start building around the young quarterback who brings solutions. If Cleveland ignores that message, they risk repeating history. They've already watched talented quarterbacks fall apart under disjointed coaching, par support, and internal dysfunction. Doing that again with a player as promising as Shedeur would be a disaster the franchise may never recover from. But if they listen, if they hold players like Jerry Jeudy accountable, if they upgrade the protection, if they give Shedeur receivers who actually finish plays, if they design an offense that matches his strengths, then the Browns finally have a shot at something they haven't had in years: stability, identity, and a future worth believing in. Shedeur Sanders has shown he's ready to lead. Myles Garrett has shown he's ready to follow. Now the Browns must decide if they're ready to build around him. Because the truth is simple. Support him now, or spend another decade wondering why the franchise keeps starting over.